guys, welcome to my new YouTube channel. Wherever you are in the world today, I want to welcome you. Today is April the 13th, 2020. My name is D. Terrence Foster. I'm a medical doctor who is based here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I've been practicing for more than 25 years. And I do have a lot of information that I know will be helpful to a lot of people. So we'll be talking about a lot of things, issues, medical issues, and I'm hoping that some things that I talk about will be useful to you. And the good thing is that you also get to choose what I talk about. So that is going to be lots of fun. Right now, the channel is new, as I said, so I'm going to talk about the things that are right now affecting us globally, and that is the coronavirus. Specifically, I want to talk about how the virus is transmitted, and there will be a subsequent video that will deal with how do we protect ourselves from being infected by the virus. So let's talk about the transmission today. Now, the virus, the coronavirus COVID-19 is considered by the CDC as a respiratory virus, which means that it affects our ability to breathe, in simple terms. Now, there are two broad categories in which the virus is transmitted. One could be considered as direct transmission, and the other as indirect transmission. Now, what do we mean by that? We know that when someone coughs, an infected person, that coming out of them is secretion, which consists of, or which may consist of saliva, mucus, or just dead cells that comes out of their nostril and their mouth. What happens to these secretion when they come out of the mouth? They form large droplets or small or tiny droplets that become airborne. Now, the very small or tiny droplet, they remain, or they become aerosolized, or they remain floating around in the air, where the larger ones, they just go a very short distance and then they fall onto something or someone. Now, one thing, or a few things that we may not, some of us may or may not be familiar with, is other ways that secretions are transmitted causing infection. And these are: one, laughing, talking, singing, exhaling, as well as yawning. Now let's look at those. Now we know that when a person is talking, in some instances you can actually see saliva in their mouth. Similarly, when they're singing or laughing, it's not uncommon. You know, those are sometimes become very hyperactive moments, or sometimes, for example, when someone is laughing, it's an happy occasion. And they're laughing, sometimes their mouth is wide open and there's just secretion falling all over the place. Now, what about yawning? You see people sometimes yawn, they open their mouth, and don't forget also, when people are doing any of these, they're also breathing at the same time. They're inhaling and exhaling through their mouth. So that is leading to secretion coming out in the form of droplets or aerosolized particle, so which may or may not be infected. So that's another. What about exhaling? When we exhale, we're blowing out. We inhale through our nose and exhale through our mouth. That's the normal way that most people will do. Now, sometimes you'll see somebody who is breathing and they're literally just breathing through their mouth. Or you may be in a conversation with someone and the conversation may go like this. You may have said something that somehow impact them negatively, and they'll say, "I can't believe it." And what happens in that process? That large puff of hair and liquid and secretion is all coming out. And if that person is infected, guess what? Then you are at risk. Now, so what is the direct transmission that we're talking about with all of these coughing, sneezing, talking, singing, laughing, exhaling, all of these things, yawning? You know, when someone yawns, they open their mouth very wide, as we said. Now, what happens is that when someone, let's say an infected person, is doing any or all of these, then when those droplets or aerosolized secretions is coming out. If they land on a person, that's essentially what a direct transmission is. It doesn't, it goes in, it lands on that person, let's assume it lands in their face, gets into their airways, their nose, their mouth, or their eye, and it gets into the airway, and which then has the potential of that person becoming infected. Now, what about indirect transmission? Now, let's assume that all those secretions, there's aerosolized secretion, did not fall on someone but lands on, say, a countertop, a doorknob, or in some instance, let's assume that the person who coughs or sneezes use their hand to cover their mouth, but then here comes somebody innocently who happens to shake that person's hand. So the indirect transmission is when you, of course, touch like a countertop where there is some aerosolized or large droplets that are infected, and you make contact with that. Then of course you then touch your face, and then providing an entry point for the virus to get into your system or your respiratory system. So in that case, you are having an indirect transmission. Another way of indirect transmission is fecal infection, where the feces is infected, and by contamination, again, you touch your face, and then you'd give an entry point for the virus. Fecal contamination or fecal infection is not very common, but is well established. Now, I can't tell you, or nobody at this point can tell you, of all these modes of transmission, which one is how each one occur and at what percentage. But it is believed, of course, that large droplets where someone is coughing right into your face, and he's right in your face, right there laughing loud or anything, where those large droplets are landing directly on you, that those are more likely to cause infection, because you're getting probably a higher dose of the viral, or you're getting a higher viral load, so therefore you're more likely to be infected from that. But bear those things in mind. The coronavirus, there's still a lot that is going on in terms of knowing exactly what each moving part is doing with respect to infection, with respect to the pathology, with respect to how best we treat this. We don't know a lot of this, but in the next video, we'll be talking about how to protect ourselves from being infected. As I said to you at the start of the video, this is my first YouTube video, so if you like it, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you hit the subscribe button, and look for the other video, because it will be a good complement to this one in helping to make us just that much safer. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.